Hello and good evening, and welcome once again to Better Than Before in the evening. I'm Dave Edelstein here to talk to you about all things to do with mindful communication and relating and getting along with people and just in general talking intelligently, uh, which please don't hold me to a talking intelligently standard. I'm doing my best here. Um, I was thinking this evening a little bit about my kids, when they were kids, uh, going back pretty far now. My daughter will be 28 this year. My son is 25. Um, it's a long time since they were little children, but because my daughter is getting married in 4 weeks from today, which is a very exciting family moment for us all. It makes me think back a lot about how do we learn how to communicate, and what do we see? Um, what do we see when our parents communicate? What do our children see us doing? We learn our communication style largely from our parents. They're the model. That's where we get our language skills. That's how we do language acquisition as little kids. So what are we acquiring with that language? Well, we're also picking up tone, and we're picking up body language, and we're picking up how to deal with emotion when we communicate. For example, anger. I've seen anger described as a learned emotion. In a way, it is. It's a way of dealing with fear. Fear is the underlying emotion, and anger is the defend at all cost type response. But people do anger very differently. Some people do anger very violently, explosively, screaming, yelling, carrying on. And some people do anger in a much more channeled, directed, calm and controlled. I'm setting a limit here, and I will not let anybody go past it without becoming all explosive and stuff. Sometimes it's difficult to say which is more frightening. But our children watch and learn this. I mean, I know that my own children did not always see the best model of adult behavior coming out of me. Looking back, I admit this. I had to live and learn. Sometimes when we feel there's an urgent need to get our feelings out or information out or express something, we lose control of the emotional content behind it. We lose control of our body language. We lose control of our tone. And we may lose control of our actual vocabulary too. These things are learned. Our children learn them. What are we teaching them? What did I teach my children? I hope most of it was good. I think most of it was good because they communicate pretty nicely. They're nice people. They're polite. They're thoughtful. They listen pretty well. The model they saw must not have been all bad. But I do know that although my parents provided a pretty good communication model, there were mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But how can we do better? We need to be conscious. We need to be mindfully aware, as I like to say, of how this communication looks. If we stepped outside ourselves for a moment, if we could observe how we're acting in a difficult conversation, or even a positive emotional conversation, a loving conversation, where love is the primary emotion, or happiness is the primary emotion. If we stepped outside of ourselves for a moment, what would we see? Would we see what we really want to see? Would we see model communication behavior? Or would we see unfortunate, running around, directionless, unfocused, emotional expressing that really isn't getting our message across to the other person. Or worse yet, allowing the other person's message to come across to us. How do we even know what we're responding to if we're not doing this well? So as we think about the legacy we're leaving, our communication style is legacy stuff. Our children pick it up from very small. They may very well pass it on to their children. We may very well have acquired elements of communication style from our grandparents or great-grandparents without even realizing it, because it was just something that stuck and went generation to generation as this is how you say it. It probably isn't perfect. Most people are not instinctively great communicators. Most of us don't listen as carefully as we should. We don't speak as thoughtfully or as kindly as we should. Our notion of really delivering a message very often is packing way too much emotion into it, so that the wise mind part of it, which someone else could much more easily respect and understand, gets swamped. So as we wind down through Sunday evening and start thinking about the work week, let's take a step back. When we're in conversations, let's take one step back from ourselves and take a look at what we're doing. Is it a good model? Do we want our kids to copy this? We want our kids to teach it to their kids, because this is going to last. Seems impossible, but there you go. Good night. Have a fine Sunday evening and a good work week. I'll talk to you again tomorrow night.